Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here today as we announce a partnership with Vet the Vote. First of all, in light of our national situation, I just wanted to comment. I wish former President Trump a speedy recovery. He looked like he's on the mend and doing well. But I also lift up in prayer the family of the bystander, the fellow that was at the event who tragically lost his life. Because he was a husband, a father, and he bravely covered his wife and daughter from danger during the shooting, and his loss is very tragic. I also lift up in prayer the two critically injured, wounded attendees, and I pray for their recovery, and I hear they're doing better. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. There is zero space for political violence. As Americans, we need to unite together around the core ideal of our founders, and that is we handle our political disputes at the ballot box. And that's why I fight every day to make sure we keep our elections fair, secure, and accurate. Secure elections is my top priority, and that's why we've partnered with Vet the Vote. It's an organization with a specific mission to recruit veterans and family members of service members to serve as election workers. Veterans and their families are no strangers to public service. They are setting an example that shows all Americans, left, right, or right down the middle, that Americans can work together when it matters and perform the task that I think is the most important for Americans, and that's the public task of voting. Safe, secure, and accurate elections. So we've heard heated rhetoric this past year, and some candidates have been saying democracy is on the ballot. But I beg to differ, because democracy is the ballot. It's when we cast our ballots. Americans are unique in the world is that we elect just about everyone to offices when you think about it. From starting at city council, county coroners, in Fulton County, even the county surveyor, to governors, presidents, state reps, and state senators. We vote on sales taxes and bonds. We vote to create cities like we did in North Fulton with the city of Johns Creek, where I served from 2012 to 2014. Americans make choices when they vote. Yes or no on this sales tax, yes or no on this candidate, and other measures that they get to vote on. We think that's really important, and that's really what defines America. No other country in the world creates their society and has created their society the way America did. And that's why I believe that America, democracy, isn't on the ballot. It's really, we get to express ourselves at the ballot itself. It's also why I believe we should do everything we can to ensure that only Americans vote in our elections. It's currently state law in Georgia that only American citizens vote in our elections. It's also federal law that non-citizens cannot vote in federal elections. But I would prefer an amendment to the state constitution, so it's actually enshrined that only American citizens would be voting in our elections. The reason I feel that way, first of all, it's has overwhelming support by all Georgians, majorities in both political parties. They believe that only Americans should vote. But it's also because groups like the Coalition for the People's Agenda keep on taking us to court to try and force us to stop us from verifying citizenship before we put people on the voter rolls. We keep winning in court, but it doesn't stop them from trying. An amendment to the state constitution, which would carry more weight than the state law than the groups on the left would like to overturn. I'm the first Secretary of State to do an audit of our voter rolls to make sure that we had only American citizens on our voter rolls. And what we found was about 1,600 instances where non-citizens had attempted to register. People say, well, that's just a small faction. Why are you worrying about that? I guess some people would like to have it be a big problem before they do something about it. As an engineer, I think we need to head things off at the source and make sure that only Americans on our voter rolls, only American citizens are voting. Getting back to the Vet the Vote, the beautiful thing about this organization is that we understand veterans are the most trusted organization in America, our military forces. What they've done is they've actually set aside the politics because they know people come from all over the country, all 50 states and our territories, coming to serve together and they build them into a cohesive, unified fighting force to protect us, to defend us. We have cemeteries throughout the world where people have done this. Normandy, and actually even in Florence, Italy, from the Italian campaign of World War II. And then most recently, in our wars in the Middle East. So we have always gone around the state encouraging people to be poll workers. Anyone can do the process. In fact, people have questions about the process. We would highly recommend that they become a poll worker. And they see all the checks, other checks, and countermeasures we have to make sure that it's a safe, accurate election. People see how the process works and they build confidence. And that's why I'm proud of Vet the Vote, because it really is bringing together people that really understand how important it is to be an American. They're well respected, and they're now serving again as election workers throughout the entire state. I will take questions afterwards, but I'd like to also introduce Vet the Vote to say a few words about what they're going to be doing here. This is a partnership. We do have state reps and state senators that have served in the military. We're reaching out to them in their districts because we want to expand this organization, the ability to really get more poll workers for the coming fall election. Dan, go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Dan Vallone. I'm the director for Vet the Vote. I first want to echo the gratitude we feel that former President Trump is safe and recovering well. We grieve with those who had a loved one lost at the tragic shooting and with the families who had loved ones injured. It's been encouraging to see political leaders from all sides call for us to lower the temperature, to tone down the rhetoric, but I think more is needed. This is a moment when, as Americans, we need to commit to each other anew, when we have to serve each other. And that's what we're here talking about today, encouraging veterans to serve their communities again as poll workers. There's no community better positioned to serve as poll workers than this nation. And we know from experience at Vet the Vote that when veterans serve as poll workers, they remind us that there is so much more that binds us together as Americans than what pulls us apart. I'm grateful for the state of Georgia, for this new partnership. We are excited to go around the state encouraging Georgia's veterans to step forward again and serve as poll workers. I'm an Army veteran. I was twice stationed here in the state, and I know from personal experience the deep bonds that bind the military community here in Georgia with the broader society. And we know that there is so much potential and enthusiasm out there among the veteran and military family to step forward and remind Americans again about this deeply patriotic, incredibly special thing we do, which is voting. Vet the Vote has recruited over 135,000 veterans and military family members across the country to serve as poll workers, and we are just getting started. Through partnerships like the one that we're launching here today, we reach out across this nation's veteran and military family community and ask them to put the country first and serve again as poll workers. And we know and we have heard how much this is of value to our members. When we surveyed our members after 2022, over 90% said they would do it again. Over 90% had a positive experience serving as poll workers. And we also know that this has a positive effect on the narrative around elections in America, that when people see veterans serving as poll workers, it reminds us that this is a civic act that we do as Americans, and that it is something we can be proud of, something we can do joyfully and in unity. So I'm excited for what we're going to be doing starting today and tomorrow across the state. I'm grateful for the team here in Georgia for making this possible, and I look forward to answering any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Dan?
So you just recruit, you also train the poll workers, there's connection to the county offices?
Yes.
That's correct. So we just connect, and I loved what Secretary Raffensperger said about democracy being the ballot. We have a saying at Vet the Vote, which is the best way to learn about the process is to be the process. And so we just make the connection and we facilitate the introduction to these fantastic election teams we have here in Georgia and across the country.
So to answer your question specifically, we'll be in Paulding County, we'll be in Muskogee County. We like to reach out to other counties which have high veteran populations. We think that's a great place to start looking for veterans to recruit for being poll workers. Absolutely. Yeah, Columbus will be down there. That's Muskogee County. So got you covered. and also there with another huge population. So this is something that want to do. We have to do it quickly because obviously the election is about 16 weeks away. Do we have any other questions? Yes, sir.
What about the workers outside? Are you all looking besides just the veterans?
We're looking for anyone that's 16 years or older. Because you can be in high school and you can volunteer to be a poll worker. And we think that's a great way of really getting our young folks really understanding how the process works. And I think once they see how the process works, you really develop the habit of becoming a lifelong voter. We think that's great. But we're reaching out to the communities, and the county election offices are doing the same thing. And by and large, we're in good shape across Georgia, but we understand that poll workers, when they are veterans, that just adds a level of comfort and confidence in people. People trust veterans. They really have just you put it on the scale, who do you trust the most? And, there's some that wouldn't be there, and then there's other professions. Veterans, caps it all. And I know that nurses are right up there, respecting their communities, and first responders and folks like that. So what better place to start? To have people that have, dedicated their lives, signed a blank check when they volunteered for military service and now want to come back and serve their country in this way, to really serve the democracy at the ballot box.
Secretary, we're going to follow up something you talked about beforehand. How often are voting rolls checked for non-citizens and why that frequency?
We're actually undergoing an audit right now, and so we do that to make sure that people understand we have clean, accurate voter list. We are, first of all, we are members of the Electronic Registration Information Center, which is a multi-state organization that we share that information when people move to another state. Likewise, we share our data when they come to the state with those other member states. Then we also, through Department of Driver Services, if anyone gets a driver's license in any of the other 49 states, we will then find out about that, and including District of Columbia. We find out that, oh, you've actually got a driver's license in, say, Montana. And then we can reach out to that voter. Have you moved there? And we begin that process. Then we keep up with death records. But we want voters to understand we are recognized by the Heritage Foundation, which won't mean a lot to folks if you're on the left side of the aisle, but if you are on the right side of the aisle, recognized by Heritage, #1 for election integrity, but also by bipartisan organizations like the Bipartisan Policy Institute, tied with Colorado for #1 for election integrity. We have accurate elections in Georgia, we have clean voter list, and that gives voters confidence in the process. Yes, sir, you had a question.
To election workers in 2020 in this state, do you see the folks who are being scared to be poll workers and to serve the public?
Well, we've actually been doing health checks throughout the entire state, and that's really regional health checks. We have some going on this week and next week, throughout the course of the week, and that's really bringing in community leaders, law enforcement, election workers, from several regional counties. We come together and we talk about the processes, but people actually are seeing that by and large, Georgia has escaped many of the anger and vitriol that we've seen in other states. And I think that we lean back into our traditional values of just being good, neighbors to everyone else, and a lot of that is dissipated. But we're continuing to make sure that people understand that poll workers are folks that you meet at the grocery store, people you see at church, in your area, could be out there at the ball field. They're your neighbors, and I think that's really worked well. Yes, sir.
What are differences that voters will see besides the poll side, poll workers or whatever, in terms of what is going to be different in 2024? I know there's a you all
I think really we're in a post-COVID environment, so from standpoint of more people have gone back to voting in person. I think this will look more like 2022 cycle, where we had about 6 to 7% of the people were actually voting with absentee ballots, and then when about 60% are voting, with the early voting that we have. We now have 17 days early voting versus 16 we had back in 2020, and then about 30% are going to show up on election day. No matter how you vote in Georgia now, it all is supported by and secured by photo ID. And so that would be the only difference from 2020, that no matter how you vote, it's all supported by photo ID.
The wisdom of the rules of the election board came down Friday.
Well, you can never tell what they're up to. Our office is focused in on making sure we have safe, secure elections. Yes, ma'am.
In regards to that meeting, we've heard from members of the public who are concerned that there's no real notice for that meeting, and therefore anything that was decided in it would disproportionately impact voters who could didn't have an opportunity to come in, have an opinion, and that anything that happens then would, at the last minute, be added to this upcoming election. Is there anything else that you wish to take the public look at?
Well, they're a mess, and I think it's pretty obvious that they are, and we're focusing on making have orderly, secure, accurate, safe elections for every voter that shows up to vote. We have 2,300 polling precincts. We will make sure they're fully staffed with poll workers, and we're really grateful for Vet the Vote, and that's why we're here today. We're excited about this. As Dan said, they have 135,000 veterans throughout the entire country. That's a great footprint, and we'll be reaching out to other veteran organizations. Last question.
Are you concerned about the role that the state election board is considering on certification and the amount of documents that election records or counting boards will have access to before certifying?
Well, we'll just have to take a look at that, and we'll comment at a later point about that. But we understand the per-cell rule. It really talks about once you're in an election cycle, being very mindful of any changes that you would make in the process. Thank you very much.